Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, your hosts, Pat and James, talk about James's short story, Hillary and Walt Sachs, which can be found online at thenomadicjournal.com. James explains that this story is one of a collection, a story cycle that he's been working on. We talk about where ideas come from and how James gets into the creative writing flow after a day spent in his day job as a ghostwriter. I really loved your story. That was so... I was so tense reading it. I was like, I have no idea what was going to happen next, which is where you want me to be, you know? Yeah, just really great.
Yeah. So, and there's another story connected. So that's part of a series of stories that leads up to the big, moment. And the first one, I want to get into ennui and weird angsty stuff and tension. I want the reader to feel tense, but I don't want silly stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want people to feel like, oh my God, this is my life.
Yeah. Totally worked. Because it takes, there's a sentence in the first paragraph where like, oh, and then because they're having like a normal conversation, it sort of like there's so much of the interior monologue is a sort of normal thoughts that you would have about like when you're just talking to somebody or, when you're thinking. And then, but the issue at the heart of it is really important. Like, how do you help this kid? And then how do you help this kid without blaming each other, without invading the kid's privacy? Like, how do you have the confrontation, or not the confrontation, but the serious thing that you need to do? How do you actually do that when just living your life is already tapping you out?
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing is and I wanted this one to be more female perspective.
It was so good. I was going to say in the email I wrote, I didn't want to be a sexist, but I was going to say, like, how the hell did you get into her head like that? Especially around the other mom whose daughter she just turned down. That was really a stroke of genius, because that gives also the public stakes of when somebody in your family is struggling and then everybody knows about it,
Yeah. Well, and I've noticed not every social grouping, but there's been enough of them that I've experienced where the women are way harsher. It's they're all really good friends and they love each other and let's go out for margaritas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of them screws up, it's like wildfire.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put all this pressure on her. So
Fantastic. I really loved it. And that's the part I was thinking about, was like, because I don't have a friend group like that. My friends are a little bit compartmentalized, I guess. But I know that when I was in the equivalent of the PTA up here, they call it the PAC, Parent Advisory Council, and I know that there was quite a lot of schadenfreude when somebody who was totally had it together, realtor, making really big money, her kids are perfect, she's got like 4 of them, and when something bad happens to them, like,
well, I guess it's not so perfect.
trouble in paradise.
Yeah, the husband seen coming out of a hotel with a woman who's not his wife.
With a crackhead. He just wants to relax for a minute.
So that's the whole book is like that angsty stuff.
Cool.
And then the main character, Trundle, who they mentioned, somebody's calling, but he's this guy who was the private school kind of loser, right?
Yeah.
From earliest days, he was the kid that everybody in private school picked on.
Oh God.
Single mom who was would just bounce him from one private school to the next. So he never really got to know anybody. And I had this experience, right? When I was in second grade, because the story is kind of based on a real person, but not really. I mean, that much.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I had this experience where there was this kid who was kind of chunky, second grade, everybody picked on him. I always kind of felt bad for him, but one day I started picking on him too because I'm second, I'm like 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're in gym class, and the gym teacher says, "All right, I've had enough. You're gonna duke it out." We're all like, "Duke it out? What the hell is that?" And he says, "Form a circle. You get in the middle. John, you get in the middle." And then she picked me of all people, and she said, "You get in the middle, and you guys are gonna fight."
No way.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. So she goes, "Okay, fight." And I like it was the like every single kid there just was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And we kind of wrestled a little bit, but I didn't really want to fight. He was terrified. It was just like it was awful. So I wanted to write this little five, like a short
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the feeling, but then I just kept going. It was like,
That's
so then
cool.
I put it down and I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh, what if this guy is like, he's just like that in life, and
Yeah.
you know, he can't ever get out from underneath it, and
Yeah.
because he bounces around from one school to another, he never figures it out.
I love his name too, Trundle. It's such a great name for that character.
Yeah. And then I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen to him? And I was like, oh, he falls in love with a really popular woman,
Yeah.
and and then finds out she's like cheating on him constantly. Like,
He gets cuckolded for the rest of his life.
yeah, you know.
Man,
Yeah, poor guy.
awesome. Kind of. Well, anyway, so if that's one of the linked stories, I am so impressed. What are you going to do with the whole manuscript? Are you still finishing it or?
Yeah, I'm still writing the other. So I've written the Trundle story is 17,500 words.
Hmm.
Then that's actually chapter 2, and there's chapter 1. So I've got, I think, about 30,000 words.
Yeah.
But I want to make each individual story related, same community, same group of friends.
Yeah.
Um, and each one has their sort of angsty thing that they're trying to figure out.
Right.
And then you come to the last story, which is going to be a much longer thing, and
Yeah.
goes back to his childhood, so that when that party happens and Trundle finds out, everybody finds out what's been going on.
Yeah.
I want it to like just land hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
going by what I read, I think it will land hard. So, so you're halfway to a short, like a collection, basically.
yeah. So I want to do 8 stories leading up to the final. So I've got 6 more of these stories to do. So, and I've got all my ideas, and that's what I mean is like I started really, just sort of started, and then for whatever reason, my brain, when I start something, I get kind of psyched about it, and my
Mhm.
brain just starts churning.
Yeah.
And so, as long as I have a piece of paper or my phone or something, so I can write the ideas down.
Yeah. Well, it's got to
Uh,
be tricky because you're writing actual books too for other people. So,
yeah,
um, because I find it's okay for developmental editing. I actually learned a lot about writing that I didn't know, when I started the business and but it's all over in 4 or 5 weeks for each other person's project. So
mhm,
I don't get so immersed. I mean, I will have ideas on their behalf that I, will bring up in the editorial letter, but it's not the same as you're creating something out of just cloth. Like
yeah,
I'm not making the suit. I'm just sewing the buttons on or something like that. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, and that's, it really resonated with me when you brought up, our these jobs that we do soul sucking in terms of
Mhm.
the real creative work that we want to do.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah, because fuck, you spend all day writing and researching and editing and all that kind of stuff, and then it's like, oh, do I want to sit here
Yeah.
and do more
Yeah.
of that?
It's like
And
you've already rented out your mind for the day. Your mind
yeah.
wants a break?
Yeah. And the thing that I found that works, if I can keep the routine, if I can, when I'm in the routine, it works really, really well. But
Mhm.
it'd be hard to get into and stay is before bed, smoke a little bit of weed, which
Yeah.
just the brain, and sit there and write.
Yeah.
just let it go, but freehand, like
Yeah.
no computer,
Yeah.
none of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
then use the transcribing from paper to computer as the time where you put a little polish on it.
yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah, because then there's the stakes are low, right? You've already changed your you've had a state change basically from the weed and just from even getting your PJs on and getting your lap desk or whatever you use.
Yeah.
And then it is a different kind of, it's more like a noodling, I would imagine. That's kind of what I had to realize today. I was thinking, oh, I should make a list of scenes, and I was like, oh, no, no, no. You got to figure out who your characters are. So I had actually thought the main character was going to be a dude. And then I was thinking, why? I don't understand why I had that in mind. I used to write from a guy's point of view all the time, but now I'm like, no, no, this would be far more interesting. Um, and potentially easier to write if it's a woman. So
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that night thing, you get into a flow
Mm,
where, and this is the thing, is if you break the flow, then it's hard to get back into it. But when you're
yeah.
in that flow, so I'll pick it up, right, after
Yeah.
not working on it, and I'm just like right there.
Yeah, that's
And
so great.
right.
Yeah.
Do you have a way to get into flow that works consistently? We'd love to hear from you in the comments or send us an email to giftedunderachievers@substack.com. Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, and have a great rest of your day.